You're listening to Against All Odds, my face-to-face discussions with everyday people who inspire.
Everything would be cool, and then it's just snaps, and it's just a white-hot rage. And so when I go into that zone, it's just, to me, that's normal, but it's not normal.
I'm Adele Odds Harris, and you're listening to Against All Odds. Today's episode, I have Jai Hoffman. He's over 6 foot tall, he's a military man and quite an imposing guy. We talk about his unconventional upbringing, his past time in bouncing and how he had developed anger issues, how he dealt with them, and now how he's helping returned veterans with PTSD. So turn up the volume, settle in, and enjoy the episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks for having us on, bro. Like, when you started this, I thought it was pretty exciting, you know, kind of a cool little venture. And I guess you're probably scraping the bottom of the barrel now, getting me on here. But I don't know, maybe I've got a story that, you know, people might find interesting. And you're right, you know, like we have known each other near on 10 years. And Odds and I have got this funny thing, you know, he calls me a silverback, but I think, you know, probably really he's the silverback. Yeah, you know, I did have a lot of anger issues, and I probably still do, really. But it's just how you deal with it and how you move on with it, you know, and sort of seek help. And I suppose, like, it all sort of started somewhere. And what Odds hasn't said is I'm a full-time soldier now. I've been in the Australian Army for, you know, sort of 5 years plus full-time. And I suppose some things happened. You know, we were deployed. You come back and you know, things get to you, but you know, only after sort of going and seeking some help for myself is where I really sort of started to understand why I might be angry and why I've been angry for so long and things like that. You know, there's a lot of things. You know, it's kind of quite nice since I sort of started seeing a counsellor in regards to that. You start being a bit more honest about things, and things have come sort of to the front where I probably have never talked about them with people, and even some of my closest mates, I haven't spoken to them about some of these things just because, you know, it's impacted me in a way, and I might have been embarrassed about things or whatever it is. And, you know, now it's like, well, stuff it, you know, if it can help someone, you know, if your story can help someone, then that's awesome.
Give people a brief background of where you came from.
Yeah, so I suppose it really started, I grew up in northern New South Wales down in the town of Wollongbar. And the big thing for me is I grew up, my parents are Hare Krishnas, and I've never spoken to people about that. That's just been this thing. I've always been very weird about it, and I probably still am in a lot of regard.
For those that don't know, because I don't know what a Hare Krishna is.
Yeah.
What I know is that they stand out and chant and offer you free food. So I think that's awesome, man. But, you know, really explain what that is.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, you know, Hare Krishnas is this, it's a religious group. It's a Hindu group from India, you know, and they came to the States in the 1980s or 1970s or somewhere around there. And it became this worldwide explosion, I suppose, because, you know, it was this peaceful thing. And back then in those times, I suppose a lot of people were drawn to it, and you saw a lot of people like George Harrison and Boy George and these other guys that were, you know, these famous rock stars all sort of drawing towards it because it did have this feel of peace and this vibe to it. Unfortunately, that might have all been great intention, but things get lost along the way, you know, and as with all organisations, I suppose there's, you know, the wrong people do get involved. And while most people have great intention, and we can look at any religion, you know, Christianity or Catholicism or, you know, Islam or any of those religions, and there's great people in all of those religions. Unfortunately, people misconstrue that. So you're right, that they do stand out in the street and chant and, you know, give out free food. But when you're a, you know, 8-year-old and you got that little rat's tail coming off the back of your head and you don't have a lot of, you know, social skills or social integration, well, you know, you get a bit weird about it.
It's a cult sort of thing. So you don't mix with it, assimilate with other kids or nothing?
It's not a cult. It's just they've got I mean, it could be, you know, like I suppose a lot of people might draw a lot of conclusions in regards to that.
Do you go to school and things, or you live on a commune? Or
yeah. So you live in a community. So down there, you know, they have 1,000-acre property where we lived on, which in some respects was cool. You know, we were these little grommets running around on 1,000 acres of mountains and rivers, and you know, we had horses and motos and all this different stuff. You know, and some of the older guys had managed to acquire these bush bashers, and we do all sorts of crazy stuff, you know. And I was sort of thinking earlier, and I thought the comparison would be like the Lord of the Flies, you know. Yeah. Who's the big dog, you know? Yeah. So, yes.
So are you at school, like a public system school, or you're home educated?
No, so they have their own school. So they actually have their own school system. And when I was growing up, I think there was 60 plus kids
Yep.
in that school, and at one stage my mum was actually the principal as well, so she's a teacher, and she was the principal. So I suppose there is a lot of the community supports itself, and it is a bit out there, and I suppose they might be a bit disillusioned as to how the real world works, and that might be to their benefit, or I'm not really sure. Maybe they're better off because they don't involve themselves in as much bullshit as we do. So I went to high school, like a public high school, in year 8.
Yeah, how was that for you going straight into high school from that system?
It was pretty out there, honestly. Like I said to you, I still had me mad little rat's tail and things like that.
Before they were cool too.
Yeah.
Before Return of the Jedi.
Now I could be a kickboxer and no one would know the difference,
Yeah.
So it was weird, mate, and it took a lot of years of finding my way to sort of integrate properly. I'm a pretty social dude, and you know that, and I've always have been. I'm a pretty friendly dude,
Yeah. So if you're on the right side of it, yeah.
On the right side of me, yeah, and so we grew up in this community, and there was a lot of things, where because it's a Hindu religion, there was this thing where all the parents were sending their kids to India for school, because there's this school over there, and they're all going, oh, that's what the kids need because that's in their religious interest and things like that. So myself and my older brother got sent to India when we were 6 and 8, respectively.
Really?
Yeah, respectively. And we were at this school for 6 months on our own, We kind of got left there.
Yeah, right. No parents?
No parents.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So.
And what, 6 and 8? So you're the older one?
I'm the younger.
You're the younger one?
Yeah. It's pretty funny, actually, because, my older brother's Sonny and I'm Jai, and then you got the Aberden brothers that grew up in Nimbin, just down the road from where we grew up, and they were Sonny and Jai and grew up in a weird cult little community down in Nimbin, Bra boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So you go to India at that time, just sent on a plane by yourself?
Mum came over with us.
Right, and then just left you?
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Wow, I don't know. Like it's quite hard. 6 is a very young age, and it's hard for me to recall a lot of things, and probably a lot of mates that were there at the same time recall a lot more than I do.
Was there a group of you? Was it?
There was a lot of guys over there. There was a lot of kids there from Wollongbar and from Australia.
Cool. Well, how long did that last?
It was a little over 6 months. I think 6 to 7 months.
Okay, so not that long.
Long enough, mate. So when you're 6 and you get left over there on your own, it's a bit of a wild ride. And unfortunately, there's a lot of instances where kids were sexually abused and things like that. And as with a lot of religions, unfortunately, there's no checks and balances when it comes to that. So there's a lot of my mates that probably aren't having the greatest, years and have a lot of bad memories from that, and that's a bit of a bitter point for me. And as a 6-year-old over there, like I don't know, like in all honesty, like I don't know what happened, mate, So there's a lot of memory there that might be repressed and whatever, So looking back on that, that's a bit of a sticking point for me, yeah.
Wow, that sounds like a heavy experience, man, especially at such a young age. You're not a Hare Krishna now, so tell me how you got out of that religion, I guess, or how you moved away from that lifestyle.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm not anymore, and I sort of shy away from religion. So there was a bit of a catalyst, I suppose, where there was some incidents occurred within the community where, mum and dad they had these positions within the community. Mum was the principal of the high school and dad was sort of the, groundskeeper and doing a few other bits and pieces. And some people within the community, become jealous of that, as happens, and sort of things escalated. There was some points where, dad got punched in the head one time and a few other bits and pieces. Anyway, so...
Sorry, how old were you at this time?
I was 17 now, so okay, sort of...
So still growing up with it a bit.
Getting towards the end of high school and that sort of thing.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no violence in Hare Krishnaism, is there? There's not meant to be.
There shouldn't be violence in Islam either, should there,
I don't know, mate. I don't know the Quran, but...
there shouldn't be, no.
Right.
Religion...
And so your dad's getting punched in the head by one of the fellow congregation.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, yep.
Correct.
Keep going.
So there was one night, things had been going the way they were going, and I went out with some of the boys. We were over at one of my mates' farms, and I came back early morning, about 6:30 in the morning, and there was the police there. And what had what had happened overnight, these people had come along and actually set fire to the house. So they'd poured an accelerant over the carport, over the side of the house.
This is your house, your parents' house?
Yeah, my parents' house. Yeah.
Who was home?
Mum, Dad, my 2 younger brothers and my younger sister, who were babies at the time. Maybe 18 months, 2 years, if that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the intention was to do damage there?
Yeah. Yeah. So they set the house on fire, and I was fortunate that Dad had woken up for some reason and came out of the house and managed to extinguish it. But in the process, they wrote the car off by burning it out. Half the garage was collapsed and the side of the house was starting to burn. Yeah.
And you got home in the morning from that?
Yeah.
To see all the what was your reaction?
Oh, I flipped pretty hard, and I heard that there had been a bloke that had sort of been at the centre of things for a while, being held for questioning.
It's in the proper police station?
No, just in the, in the community.
Because they sort this stuff out in-house, do they?
I mean, like probably they try to, yeah. Well, it should have been handled. It wasn't, so...
And you're 17 years old, and this is probably where a lot of the anger came from.
Yeah. So I went in and I grabbed a couple of butterfly knives because we all had butterfly knives. I had a knife and I was going to go and stab a motherfucker. And I went on a bit of a rampage and I tore around the community and I punctured a lot of people's tyres on their cars and was looking for blood.
Yep.
And I got to the community area where they were holding this guy. And I was blazing, knife out, and I was in, and a good family friend stopped me. And I probably broke down after that. I was pretty emotional after that, and maybe thankfully, I don't know, give me another go. I might do it again, Yeah. But, he stopped me. And, from there it all sort of escalated. Mum and Dad moved to Melbourne not long after that. And I kind of moved on.
You moved away?
Yeah.
Where did you move to?
I moved to Brizzy.
And what did you do when you moved here?
I started bouncing actually.
Yep.
Straight away, I was up on Caxton Street. I used to do Hotel Olay and the Caxton Hotel.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I suppose
that mustn't have been the best role for you to do with anger issues.
I think it suited me very well.
Or either good or bad.
Things were very different back then. We're going back 15 years now. And times were pretty loose. It was I suppose Brisbane was a bit like Dodge. And it was different. So, people used to start things and, bouncers used to finish things and that's just the way it was. It didn't really go much further than that. Yeah. So we had some pretty wild times, and we forged a pretty solid crew through those times as well. Yeah,
because you got quite a, probably some of your best mates are from that time.
The majority are, that's right. In fact, and that's how we met as well, So.
Yeah, I wasn't bouncing.
No, you weren't bouncing, but, still the same.
Yeah.
Didn't meet the height requirement.
You were quite a force around Brisbane. Tell me how you decided to give that up.
Yep. So what happened is I did my trade. So I'm a boilermaker and a welder by trade, and I suppose I kept bouncing through the entire duration of my trade just to sort of make ends meet. And it got to a point where I used to question whether I should go back on the weekends or not. Things were changing a little bit, and crowds were changing, and a lot of heat from the law and things like that. And I suppose there was this one night we were working in the valley, which was a bit of a hot spot at the time, and there was this one night where this patron just took a swing and hit one of my doormen, who's actually a very, very close friend of ours. And I grabbed this bloke and I put him in a chokehold, which was a bit of a favourite. And I choked him out. And as he went unconscious, I've let him go out of my arm. And as he rolled down my arm, his neck caught in the crook of my elbow. And as he sort of rolled out of that, his neck twisted sideways and it went, crack, a lot of cracks. And the guy dropped on the ground. And he just lay there. And I looked at him and I went, shit, I've done it. All these years, 15 years or whatever it was, and I was finally going to get out, and I went, oh, God, I've finally done it, And I suppose it was...
You finally done what?
Killed a bloke bouncing,
Because you always thought you would, or...?
No, I didn't actually. I just, I suppose it's lucky, I spent 15 years and we never had a serious incident or never, I never had charges or anything laid against me. And it's a violent job, or it used to be a very violent job. And so I was lucky to get through a career without something happening, something significant. And then I thought, oh shit, I've killed a bloke, I just went calm. I just went, oh God, and I don't know, after that, I want to say there was remorse, but there wasn't. I have this very solid policy, you start it, well, you better be ready to finish it. So if you want to go in there and cheap shot a bloke, well, you get what's coming your way.
Yep. And what ended up happening? You wake up?
Yeah, you wake up. Yeah, and then not long that, I think that might have been my last shift. I think I got out after that.
Mate, tell me a little bit about those anger issues, when you, when they really came to the front of your mind to say, this is what's happening. I've actually got anger issues. Everyone around you knew it, but tell me a little bit about when you came to realise you had them. Yeah,
cool. I mean, you're probably right. Everyone else around me probably did realise I had anger issues, and maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't see it as an issue. For me, I just thought that was life. I just sort of got through and dished out justice, or my view of justice when I saw fit. And I suppose taking me back to like my mid-20s was probably where I might have been the worst. And there was an instance one time where myself and another good mate of ours, Matt, were on the way to training, and essentially this car cut us off. And I used to keep this handful of 20-cent pieces in the middle of the car, in the middle of the the drink holder. And when people pissed me off on the road, I just used to send that out the window, and fuck them, So we're driving to training, and these guys have cut us off, and I just thought, that just triggered me. And so we're back in front of them, and I got these pieces and I threw them out the window, boom, all over their windscreen. They've pulled back in front of us and they kept cutting us off, and we were like, all right, this is getting silly. Like, we'll just get out of here. And so they're sort of veering in and out, and I'd try to get around them, and they'd cut me off and they'd cut me off. And we got to the point where we looked at each other and we just said, next red lights, and we get to these red lights, and we were just straight out of the car up to the side of the car trying to rip their doors off, and by then they'd seen us, and they they locked the doors, and we were going to have them. We would have dragged them out on the road and bashed them there on the road, no doubt about it. And they sort of secured themselves quite well within the vehicle. And they waited till the lights went green with, these two big monkeys trying to tear their doors off. And anyway, the cheeky pricks, as they drove off, pulled the finger at us. And we decided enough was enough. So we sort of walked away. But that wasn't an uncommon event. That sort of thing occurred quite frequently, and we just thought sort of nothing of it at the time.
Yeah, but was it generally with someone else?
No.
Yeah, because generally you're by yourself. I know these events did happen.
Yeah, generally.
And you're generally by yourself, but...
Generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did either of you recognise that was, a little different?
No, not at the time. Not at the time, no.
Okay, so when did that come about that you went, this is probably not the right path for me?
Well, yeah, I suppose I met a pretty amazing girl, I suppose about 6 years ago, who's my wife now. And after a few years, I guess things started changing a little bit. And I went, oh, God, if you want a stable life, well, you've got to settle it down a little bit. And, I managed to get it under wraps a lot. I just sort of, as I got older and matured, I managed to settle things down within myself.
This is the anger.
The anger.
Just tell me a little bit about that anger.
Everything would be cool, and then it's just snaps, and it's just a white hot rage.
Did you remember much that happened when you got the rage?
Yeah, I have like perfect clarity. Yeah, things are just like clear. So for me, it's almost like, I suppose it's almost an adrenaline response. And, now since I've been seeing a counsellor, she seems to think that, I run a lot higher. My energy level's a lot higher than everyone else or a lot of people, And so when I go into that zone, it's just, to me, that's normal, but it's not normal.
For an athlete, that could be in the zone.
Sure.
Yeah. So tell me about when you recognise that wasn't a normal thing in the way you're responding to it.
Yeah. All right. So I honest to God, I almost thought I had things under wraps. And then after I deployed overseas, when I came home, there was things just really wearing me out again. And I felt it rise up, and I was like, oh God, I haven't felt this sort of, it's rage, this sort of rage within me for a long, long time. And I started thinking in my head, geez, this is like 23 to 25-year-old Jai. And when I can't afford that, I have a career, I have, a wife, I have all these things where I went, I can't afford that. That's not normal to be doing those sorts of things in the street. And I was there for a little bit, and I thought, what am I going to do about this, And I found a way. Within the Army, we have VVCS, which is Veterans and Veterans Families Counselling Service, and that's a free service offered to all soldiers that have deployed. And I went, you know what, I'm going to do that. It's there, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to seek help. And so I did, and I called them, and I've been seeing them since, sort of, the end of last year sometime, and it's really working well, and there are times where you run into, a wall and you go, oh, and they go, there's a crossroads here, mate, you've either got to improve or maybe we're done here. And you go, oh, God, all right, I better keep moving forward. And there are techniques like breathing. Breathing works very well, progressive muscle relaxation, and just maybe removing yourself from situations, just before you splinter, or the biggest thing is starting to recognize your triggers. And we do a lot of work, and, apparently anger is an overarching response, and there's a lot of things that build and feed into anger that are actually the underlying source of the anger. And so starting to try and understand maybe where the anger is coming from, and hopefully, listening to my story, you might have heard a few of those, and so, anything like it could be, I don't know, sadness. I'm not a sad person, but, sadness or frustration or, any of those sorts of things could lead into anger. And so identifying the triggers, and every time you're in a situation where you start to feel that old familiar feeling, you need to go, hang on a minute, I need to stop, or this is going to escalate very quickly, especially with my quick turnaround point or flash point, So I've started doing that, and the yoga helped massively. After I had a knee surgery a few years ago, I started doing yoga, and I did 50 days straight of yoga every single day. And I was pretty zen by the end of that. I was very chilled out, and that for me actually was maybe a major turning point in my life. So, just to chill out, do that breathing, and that exhaustion from doing power yoga, and then afterwards, a bit of meditation, breathing, things like that, I think is extremely beneficial for anyone.
Were you having treatment with your psych when you were doing the yoga as well?
No. So the first time I was doing yoga, that was well before that, and that's actually that a little earlier you sort of asked, where did you get it under control? And that might have been the first time I actually really had my anger under control. And then I sort of didn't have the opportunity to train for about 1.5 years, 2 years in yoga, or, I wasn't self-practicing as well, which is a shame. And then I allowed it to get away from me again. And now since I've been back, I do a lot of yoga now. I feel like things are very much under control. So,
what's some advice you have for anyone listening that might be, not just suffering from anger issues, but, PTSD or, those sorts of things? Yeah. So what's any advice you have for any listeners?
Seek help. Yeah.
Professional help though, isn't it?
Most definitely. I'm not saying if you become a yogi, you're going to, be all zenned out and fix everything. That's merely a tool. That's part of it, or breathing exercises are just simply a part of the tools that a professional will give you, and it's about uncovering the source of where all the issues are coming from, and learning how to cope. The issues don't necessarily go away, but we can definitely find ways to cope with them. So without a doubt, I see a counsellor, not a psych. It's there's a slight difference there, and that was the first stop for me, and if I had left it unchecked, who knows where it would have ended up, So definitely go and, see your GP or see a counsellor. There's a lot of community counselling services and things like that, and start to take steps. I think you have to be extremely honest with yourself at times and say, do I have a problem, or am I, am I pretending I don't have a problem? And that's a hard question. You've got to sit there and ask yourself and say, I need to seek help for this, and then go and do it. If I'm going to sit here and, try to help people out myself, well, then I have to be, I have to have myself squared away as well. There's no point me telling people to do something or advising people to do something, and I'm not following the same practice myself.
So recently you took an interest in returned vets and PTSD. Where does that come from, have you suffered from that?
No, not at all, actually. And I'm still trying to learn the ins and outs of PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Essentially, it can come from a build-up of events that occur over your life. So not necessarily an isolated event. And obviously there's a lot with the military due to, people's service and things like that. But that doesn't mean you have to be a deployed veteran to get PTSD. You can get it here from any number of things. So I'm still trying to understand the ins and outs of it. And I know that anxiety and depression are merely symptoms of PTSD. So it can be a combination of these things, and it can be quite a debilitating disease. So I suppose when we got back from Afghanistan, I had a look around and we were pretty angry, and we were a bit out of shape and, tired probably. You're on the go for a long time and we're probably tired. And I suppose I felt a little bit out of shape myself, and I saw a lot of guys that needed help, and I thought, oh God, we might be, high risk here for guys maybe to be struggling a bit. So I started going, well, I've got a bit of free time, and maybe I can help out. And there was an organisation, Survive to Thrive Nation, which used to be in and out fitness organisation that a mate of a mate had started. And I'd been following them on social media for quite a long time. And so we decided to do this fundraiser for those guys. And so, I run a bit of a training crew outside of work, and, I train these guys, 4 or 5 times a week. And, that's a mixture of civilian and army guys. And they do some pretty incredible work. So we try to train a lot of resilience and things like that. And we do some pretty grinding sessions. So over New Year's Eve, we decided we were going to do 100 sets each of Kangaroo Point stairs, which if anyone's done even one, it's a bit of an ordeal. Yeah,
just explain Kangaroo Point stairs, because this is a worldwide audience.
Yeah, so Kangaroo Point stairs is a flight of stairs. I think there's 104 stairs. I should know, I've run them enough. 104 stairs in the flight, and it's an upper sheer 18-metre cliff, and it sort of winds back on itself and then gets pretty steep at the top. So, when people are training there, usually 10 is quite a good session. 20 is big. And so these guys sat there and we ground out 100 each, and that was between 3.5 and 4.5 hours of work, and started up at 4 a.m. And I think last person finished about 9 or 9:30.
Out of how many guys did you get doing it? And girls?
Oh, God. So total audience, we ended up with about 40, maybe between 40 and 50 people attempting it with us, and 5 of us finished it.
Yeah, right.
And 3 of them were actually girls, all are civilian females, and then another guy that trains with us and myself. So quite an accomplishment.
I came down, but I was there about 20 minutes late or something. You guys had already finished.
I think you got there for breakfast, mate.
So, mate, how much did you raise?
Well, about a week out, we decided we'd turn it into this fundraiser. And so we found Survive to Thrive, and we thought this is great, and we threw a bit of communication back with Dane. And about 4 days before we actually did the event, we started a GoFundMe page. And in that 4 days, we raised $4,500, which, directly sponsors multiple veterans onto an online program to help them.
Tell me a little bit about the organisation, how you're involved, and what you're doing now.
Yeah, awesome. So ever since the fundraiser, Dane approached me and asked if I would be interested in coming on as an ambassador. And that's been really good, and I didn't quite know what that meant at the start. And at the end of the day, it's just about raising awareness, raising awareness for the organisation. And so now I've started a PT program. So every Tuesday night, we run a PT program, a free PT program for ex and serving defence members, emergency services, so, police, fireys, paramedics, nurses, doctors, and any part of their support group. So we offer that. Recently, we've shifted that towards yoga, and there's a lot of benefits to yoga that are just continually being proved by, modern science. And I think the benefits of that are just amazing,
Those local and in Brisbane, where can they find you?
So if you jump on the Survive to Thrive Nation webpage, so that's on Instagram and on Facebook, Survive to Thrive Nation. We actually have a group, Survive to Thrive Nation Kangaroo Point, and it's just the Tuesday night training group. And now anyone that's in that position can just add that group, and we'll put them in there, and you can come down and start training with us. Everything I do is self-paced, so we have a look at who's there. And everything we plan, we always have alternate exercises, and we just cater. Obviously, some of the people we're dealing with are suffering from physical disabilities or mental disabilities. So they might need to redevelop that, or they might not have the ability to keep training the way they used to, and so we allow for that. And we look at everyone, the first things we ask, how's your injuries? Do you have injuries? And then we build the session from there.
Hey, Jai, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you sharing your story, and I appreciate everyone sharing their story, actually, and, entrusting me with it. I hope listeners got a benefit out of it and learnt something. Where can people find you, and where can people, find the organisation that you're doing some work for?
Yeah, well, thanks for having us on, Matt. I really appreciate it.
And also, where to from now for you?
That's a good question as well. We might need to do another podcast for that. So you can find me. I have an Instagram page, and I just share a bit of inspiration and yoga, and not inspiration, nutrition. I'm not inspiring. I have a bit of nutrition, a bit of yoga, and a bit of PT and things like that. And that's just at The Real Jai Ho, just JAIHO. That's just my personal page. And if you want to see me with no shirt on, that's probably the place to go. Now, Survive to Thrive Nation, so they have a Facebook page, a website, and also an Instagram. So you can jump on Survive to Thrive Nation or at Survive to Thrive Nation on Instagram. We'll have some upcoming events over the next few months. We haven't quite knuckled down on what we're doing, so please stay tuned on that, and some fundraisers and things like that. For the moment, we'll continue to develop the Tuesday night program, and if you have someone that you feel could benefit from that, please feel free to shoot either myself or Dane at Survive to Thrive an email, and we'll respond to that pretty quickly. From there, we'll just continue to build the yoga. We want to have some Sundays and things like that over the next few months.
All right, sounds good, man. Cheers.
Yeah.
Hopefully you get some a lot of support for what you're doing. I think what you're doing is great. And I hope the guys that you're doing it for really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I really appreciate that. Just to close, I suppose, if you're someone that needs help for any number of issues, not just anger, for depression, anxiety, PTSD, do the right thing by yourself and your friends, and go and help. Go and seek help. It takes a big man or a strong lady to actually acknowledge that within yourself, that you do need help, and to go and seek help through the right channels. So if you feel like you're in a position like that, there's a lot of services that can help you, and it would be really great if you went and helped yourself out.
Cheers, bro.
Thanks, man.
Good work.
Cheers, bro.
Hope you enjoyed episode 12 with Jai. And remember, if you need that help, go to Survive to Thrive Nation and do some training with him. It's great to be back doing the show. I'm slowly learning the intricacies of this podcasting business. The listenership's growing at a slow rate, but it is growing. And messages of support, come into my messenger folders on a weekly basis. Can I ask that if this show resonates with you, or a particular episode, please share it with someone. I started this thing to help people, and it's become a resource to direct people to, and it helps in beginning difficult conversations about difficult topics. I truly believe through other stories we can learn. And, it helps people feel less alone and find ways of living a happier life, having a better time of it. I'd love to hear your stories on the topics that we cover. If you've got any questions, contact me on Instagram. You can find me at Sensei Odell, or on the podcast does have an Instagram page as well, Against All Odds. I think the follow account is massive. It's up to 200. Back to our regular release date of every fortnight. And next week I have a conversation with Brent Simpson from Heavy Hitters.
You walk in, you go through reception, you get put in your cell, and my first cellmate was Ivan Milat. He was on remand. He'd just been arrested. And my first 3 nights was, sleeping in the same cell as a serial killer that we now know is a pretty twisted unit.
I look forward to having your earbuds in. And remember, everyone's got their own shit to go through. Stay humble, stay kind, stay smiling. Odds out.
Hi Odds, just thought I'd let you know one of Jai's weaknesses. If you pin him down, tickle him and say whistle and he'll stop, he can't whistle to save himself. Love you, Jai.